opened your mind to the church?
Well, when I was in seminary, my first year in church history, first we learned about the great ecumenical councils of the early church, the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Chalcedon. And I was very taken by the idea that there was infallible power in the early church to say what the content of the Christian faith is. And it didn't occur to me that when the Council Fathers at Nicaea defined the nature of Christ, that they could be wrong about that. That was an unquestioned part of my faith. And then later in church history, we read John Henry Newman's Apologia Pro Vita Sua, his story of how he went from the Church of England into the Catholic Church.
John Newman was an Anglican minister about 150 years ago. Actually considered one of the greatest writers of England.
Right, he was one of the shining lights of the Church of England in the 1830s and 40s. And he describes how he looked for the Catholic tradition in the ancient church and how he discovered the church fathers. And I yearned for such a church that could speak with authority and unite believers because there was truth in its very being, truth given to it by God. And then, as he discovered that Catholic tradition could only be found in the Catholic Church, I was transfixed. I'd never come across that idea before. And I went home and I said to Pat, I'm wondering if we ought to become Catholic. Well, at that time, neither one of us was ready to deal with that idea because I was studying to become a Protestant minister. I didn't know any way to resolve that, so the issue just dropped for the time. But there was this conception of truth coming out of the unity of the church that stayed with me even under the surface.
You mentioned Council of Nicaea, about you didn't question one of the most important things we remember from that council, but it declared other things too, that as non-Catholics we kind of set aside.
It didn't occur to me at the time that I took their definition of the nature of Christ for granted, fully divine and fully human, and yet the very same fathers who defined that also believed in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. They believed in Mary as the Mother of God.
Yeah.
And they believed in the teaching authority and the necessary unity of the church. They believed they were one body. And it was only later that I put those things together and realized if I took the authority of the church for one part of the faith, I had to take it for the whole faith, because the apostolic faith is all of a piece. It all goes together.
It is, and you're looking at that time at the idea that here's a group of bishops that can declare a truth that all Christians are to believe, then and now. All right.
That's right.
Where is that body today? See, there's the issue. Which of these churches has that kind of authority to declare something on? Think of all the issues that are in controversy between all the different denominations in the world. Who's to decide?
And I didn't look at that issue again for about 7 years. But once I looked at it again in those terms, where is that unity today? The answer was clear. It was in the Catholic Church. There was no place else that it could be, because the Catholic Church alone has preserved those doctrines from the beginning. And the Catholic Church alone presents a principle of unity that all Christians can gather around.
So as soon as you discovered that, you just came into the church, right?
It would have been simpler if it had been that quick. Actually, it took me 4 years from the time that I thought of